Hi, hello everyone. Good morning, and welcome to our look. We have not rehearsed. Welcome to another INTEA breakfast. Today we're going to talk about branding, but before that, could you please find the chat button and type a little plus in there just to make sure that you can hear us and we can actually see your chat.
Yeah, we've got pluses coming in, so
okay,
so we're
all
good.
right. All right, so what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about corporate learning, branding of corporate learning, basically. So this is another series, another episode in our series of breakfasts where we bring in marketing into learning. And today we're going to talk about branding specifically. Branding is probably not completely strange to most of you. You have your branded e-learning portals called We Learn, I Learn, You Learn, everyone learns. They all got some kind of brand, right? So this is something we're going to talk about today, but we will take it much more broadly. I would say.
Yeah, we'll try to elevate it to a more strategic level. Yeah, let me just start by saying that your learning brand is not the same as just having a name for your learning platform, right? So hello Edmonds, we are fine. Now we can start.
Yeah, we have our platinum flyers with us, so we can start.
All right. So yeah, let's talk about branding your whole learning thing. Before we begin, a little game. Type in the name of the company in chat. We should have
Nike. Yeah. Okay. Nike's coming in. Great.
Excellent.
Excellent. Next
guess this one.
Who's the faster? Yeah, Christine. I got it first. Brilliant. Next one. Disney. Excellent.
Yep, right, correct. So these are all examples of great brands. You can see that they are recognizable even without any clue in their most primitive and simplistic form. They're still recognized all over the place. All of those brands have their own personalities, they have their own strategies, they have things that we associate with them, how we feel about them.
They have their history.
They have their history. History is part of the brand too. There are some characteristics to those brands that those companies that own those brands not necessarily want associated, for example. And this is what makes a brand. And today we will talk about your learning initiatives, how they can become strong brands. And we'll begin actually by trying to understand why do we even need brands, right? So why branding? Why can't we just do our learning and development? We have a L&D department in our company. We have a platform. Why do we need a name? It's something like learning.ourcompanyname.com, something like that. What else? Yeah, why do we need a brand?
Because in my opinion, and also what I see in marketing, for something to be liked or loved, it needs to have a name, right?
Right. So if there's so for it to be a thing, it has to be a name.
It has to be a name. It has to be a name, definitely. And in some of the companies, and of course, we'll talk more than just about the name of your learning portal. But I see that some companies have three levels of how their learning kind of platforms are called. In some companies, it's just it would be called Moodle or Saba. It doesn't have a name. They call it like a technology. They take this name of the technology they use.
Right.
Then the second level is then when you have your, I don't know, whatever, company, ABC, university, academy, e-school, whatever, right? Or I learn, you learn, we learn, everybody learns. And only the third level is when this brand is much more than just a name or a color. Right.
And it's also more than just a platform, right? So
And it's more than the platform.
it goes beyond the technology. It goes into, well, we'll talk about things that goes to, but it goes into a much broader experience than just the technology. So you probably want your brand to be stronger than just the name of the platform where the courses are. And you definitely don't want your brand to be Moodle.
Absolutely.
Or even Saba. Saba is a great company, but it's not your brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the two major reasons I see why we seriously need a brand for our learning is, first of all, if we are going to compete for attention with Facebook, Instagram, everything else around our learners, we have to be strong. We have to have a brand.
Yeah,
I mean,
we have, like, I would say we have to be strong, and having a brand is part of that strength. So that actually, let's now rely on, you know, smarter people than us. The Boston Consulting Groups, they have it's not a very big paper, but it's crucial. It's about corporate universities in general. A corporate university is it's actually a very American term for a learning initiative, but they identify brands as one of those key pillars, one of the 6 building blocks, one of the 4 supporting blocks to an essential learning objective, learning initiative, and that are brands, right? So brands are right there with the delivery model, right? When you decide on how are we going to teach everyone in our company, it's at the same level. It's at the same kind of C-level objective of things that you have to think about. Right now, I think the brands are strong, and we need brands because they always bring a promise with them, right? So when you let's go back to McDonald's, for example, right? Lots of tourists use McDonald's. I use McDonald's when I'm abroad. I don't think I use McDonald's here in Latvia, but abroad, when I'm in a hurry, when I'm not don't have time for research, when I'm not sure whether that research will be fruitful, I will always go for McDonald's. It's not the greatest way to have a meal, but it guarantees me a certain quality of service, certain quality of food, certain quality of not getting poisoned in India or something like that. So that's a promise, right? We take Nike, we understand what kind of, like, if you say, hey, can I bring my Nike pants? I can imagine what kind of pants those will be, right? And so on. Disney, same thing, right? Mercedes, BMW, Apple, all of those brands, they immediately promise something that we associate with them. And even other brands, the strongest brands make other brands associate with them, right? You can say that this is the Tesla of motorcycles, right? Or this is the Apple of microphones, right? So there is a promise. Like, do you have a promise? And like, it's the great thing about that is that the promise is on one hand, it's everything that good that you've done and kind of solidified in your brand. Everyone is used to the fact that you're providing a good time, a good meal, or, you know, a good equipment, or a good learning, and then you keep that consistent, right? So you provide consistently good learning, and that becomes a habit. And then anything else you build, you have that trust, you have that habit of people, of trusting you. You have changed their behavior into just, you know, knowing that, well, this is, Swedbank Academy. Like, they don't do bad learning. Like, if I want to take a course from a company somewhere in the market, I have to think about it, I have to do research and so on. If it's brought to me by Swedbank Academy, I know that, you know, it will build. They don't do bad learning. They don't provide bad learning, even if it's outsourced, for example, and so on. And then you don't have to think. And thinking is the worst part. Thinking is the worst thing that consumers can do in marketing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is, I think, the cornerstone of any brand, that this consistency. You might not be the best in the market. You might be somewhere in the middle in terms of quality or price or something. But if you are consistent, you will have a following. But if you are going up and down in terms of prices, quality, fulfilling expectations, you will not have a kind of a loyal following. So,
right. So loyalty is a key word here probably, and yes, consistency is because, like, imagine if you go to a restaurant and you know for sure that your meal will be under 10 euros. It's probably not going to be a very fancy restaurant. You go there, you know that you will not exceed 10 euros, like every time. Or you go to a restaurant and that's going to cost you 100 euros per person. Probably you don't go there every day. Hopefully you do. But suddenly, it's a 10 euro meal there. And you're like, what happened? Like,
since when?
Well, yeah, and why on a date? Like, why today?
Why today? Exactly.
Yeah, and otherwise, like you hope for a 10 euro meal, and suddenly it's all fancy, and somehow today you have to wait for 40 minutes and pay 100 euros, and you didn't want.
Exactly.
So yeah, so brand is this core which allows you to solidify the goodwill and the form habits of people around that. Another part of a brand is that learning isn't very tangible, right? So, and when we talk about marketing, if you Google like marketing, you have to look for service marketing if you want to find something useful, because otherwise you will find things about packaging and delivery times and all those physical things that surround products. Yes, but we're more marketing services. And even on the front of services, this is not the most tangible of all, right? If you go in, you go out. Hopefully you've become better. How do you prove that? One of the things, here's a question to the audience. How do you in every day, and I'm sure everyone here does it, how do you make an intangible service such as learning tangible? How do you prove that you've learned something? Anything tangible that you can come up with and type in chat? What's the physical evidence that you have learned something? Come on, we're 12 minutes in. You couldn't be all asleep.
Yeah, because you see, it's a very, very difficult question, and bringing in tangibility into a service industry is #1 challenge for so many service providers.
Change in behavior. Describe outcome. Right. No.
This is not. This is intangible as well.
This is intangible. The tangible things, like the physical, something that you can hold in your hands.
Yeah, and I'm sure you do. You do some of them.
You've done a lot of learning, and you have a few tangible things out of that learning.
Certificate.
Yes.
Yes,
it's a certificate or a diploma or a badge
or those huge binders they give you in conferences.
Yes.
Where conference, we can assume it's a learning experience, right? So they all these fancy companies who do services, they try to print out something really, really tangible.
Right. Workbooks and lots of stuff, so that you don't have something tangible after. Also, you come into a learning experience, you get something tangible. Now, when we talk about e-learning, we don't print out certificates, although I've seen a lot of courses where you get a picture of a certificate in the end that you can even print out if you like, and so on. So this is all ways to make you feel that you have something. So brand is actually a way to make your learners feel something, and it makes all this cloud of meaning of our company develops you and helps you learn and grow, and we invest into our employees and so on. It solidifies into this thing. We'll talk about GE University in a second, how it happened to them, but brand is something that not necessarily you can touch, but that is something that you feel is a thing, right? And also as a thing, you can put it on a balance sheet, right? So in a company, brand is actually on a balance sheet, right? So you have your, buildings and equipment and computers
And
everything. And also a brand. It's worth
brand,
something.
yeah. And I would add that this tangibility is very important internally, not only for learners, but also for the sponsors or for the investors in this brand.
This is my next slide, by the way.
Yeah,
Right.
accrued value.
Yeah, the brand allows you to generate value around it and kind of store that value and bring and show this value. Like our learning initiative is all throughout the organization. How do you show that? How do you talk about that? We don't know. But what if you come to your CEO?
Yeah, and you ask, you know what, we need another 100,000 euros for e-learning. He'll be like, well, quite a lot of money. Why?
When was the last time I've seen e-learning?
Yeah, I don't see e-learning in our company. Yeah. But if you go there and say we need 100,000 euros or dollars to build a university in our company, an academy, a school, it will be called this and that, and we'll be doing this and that. The CEO can justify it, and he can also compare it to building a brand for a new product. Right. You can say, okay, you asked me for 100,000, so what's this new product we did, which was not a very big product? Oh, it was 200,000 or $1 million. Yeah, it kind of sounds reasonable, right? So you are stepping up your game when you start using brands, when you use the brand to solidify, as Sergey said, hold this e-learning or learning initiative.
Right, and also the learning expenditure is expenditure, right? You spend money on learning all the time, and we all know, let's all be frank, it's very difficult to calculate the return on that, right? So kind of the money goes out, that's very easy to see. Where does it come back in? Unless we're training for sales, and even then we've talked about that, it's not very easy, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a brand, all that expenditure becomes an investment. You can talk to your C-level bosses about investing in a brand, right? So this year we have spent 200,000 on learning, and this year we have invested 200,000 into building our learning brand by providing these learning initiatives, by training so many people, by doing this and that. So it's a different kind of message, kind of language that you use when you start thinking in brands, right? So yeah, you can build capital, and you can put it on a balance sheet essentially, and it also gives you a little bit of power inside the organization as well.
And I've seen companies that when they go for an IPO or for a merger or attracting investors, that one of the selling points there is, of course, what's going on with training and if that is again branded, that gives value to the whole company.
Right.
I mean, a company with corporate university and without corporate university, there is a difference, right? So it's
we have a corporate university, not just on paper, but actually feels and looks like corporate university. Kind of brings you into the Fortune 500 league, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's move on a little bit. So I like this picture. I show it in my e-learning marketing workshops a lot. To me, this slide has two meanings actually. One is that well, anything that we do and say and create in our learning department, we do a lot, but only what people sense and feel and touch, like where they touch, this is where the brand happens. But also the brand is actually the bridge between what we do and say and our values and what we're trying to. We're all good people here, right? We all try to do our best. We want our employees to be as prepared as possible. We want to provide them with great experience, not to waste their time and so on. But how do we translate this to them? How do we explain it to them? In those milliseconds that they have to spare with us of their attention. Well, brands help that. Again, let's go back to Nike, this little swoosh, right? It's essentially just one little thing, not even in the form that it was created, but immediately you feel a lot about that. You might like it, you might not like it.
Yeah, but you have an opinion.
You have an opinion, exactly, and you recognize it immediately.
And but for me, this picture is also very important because I very often see these two circles do not cross
At all.
At all.
Right.
That there is a story that we have great e-learning or great learning portal, and when you ask people, so what do you know about it? Kinda, do you like it? I know it's a mess. You know, so it's very important to get those to cross
Or like
as much
what
as possible.
or what portal?
What portal? Yeah, yeah. So this is something to be very much aware because we often forget about this orange part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I wanted to talk, like, show you a few examples of great initiatives, and I also wanted to talk about how a company brand is different from a learning brand. Of course, companies with strong brands are likely or have better chances at having a strong learning brand as well, because this is just the way of how people there think and how they view them. But well, first of all, not necessarily. There are companies with great brands. I've worked with a few American companies like Tesla, for example, right? They don't have learning brand, or at least a few years ago when I had a chance to look at their learning, it's just learning, right?
Yeah.
The Tesla is essentially a verb now, or
Yeah.
like I said, a Tesla of motorcycles or a Tesla of trucks, or this is a Tesla of airplanes. Like anything that's electric and innovative, people call it a Tesla of the corresponding industry. Huge brand, everyone knows it, but their learning, at least at that point, was just learning, just courses and presentation. No one was talking about that. And this is probably because people who built it, they did not come from this branding side of things. However, in McDonald's, for example, they have their own university, but I really love the fact that they don't call it the McDonald's University.
Yeah,
they call it Hamburger. It's a very rich name in when you think about how an American perceives that, because hamburger, it's essentially a surname as well, and
yeah, it's a hamburger university that has French fries in its logo. So
yeah, lots of meanings.
Yeah,
and they don't. It's I think it's a good example of how not to overbrand your university with your company brand, because even in learning we see that we try to brand our learning, but we automatically take our corporate brand. Let's say if you go into okay, I'm always worried about naming names when I give
but
bad
let's
examples.
Say there is let's say there is a bank.
Let's say right, and this guy knows what I'm talking about. So let's say there is a bank, and that bank has a distinct color, as all banks do, and you go into a course, and it's all printed in that bank brand color, and it has a bank logo in the corner, and also a bank logo on the background as like a watermark. And the whole thing is called the bank university, or the bank academy, or the bank school, something like that. And the whole portal is called, the bank portal, and you go and you're blasted with the logos and the names, and they almost obscure the content that you're trying to get, all given the fact that you're actually sitting in the bank building with
and you have the same logo behind you
and on you, probably, right?
Yeah,
maybe it's this little band that helps you carry your keys or something, but still it can be a little bit crazy. But the problem with that is that this is not the brand that you control. It's not the brand that you build value around. It's not the brand that necessarily everyone in your company feels very happy with. And anything good that you do towards that brand is essentially taken by people who own that brand, and that's not you. So politically, it does not give you any strength inside your organization on your personal level. And anything bad that happens with it, just you have no. It's not your brand, right? You can use it, but it's not yours. So the Hamburger University is a good example of not over branding that. And
Yeah.
Here's another
Here's
example.
an example of a brand which is a brand in itself.
Yeah, so this is actually from Cottonville, I think the name is, from General Electric. So Cottonville is this little town in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Very beautiful place, nice houses, rural, nice life, and so on. And this Cottonville in time has become the synonym of great learning. Any C-level executive, Crotonville, right?
Crotonville.
So any C-level executive that went to Crotonville would come back and say that was excellent, right? The service and the quality of materials and the conferences that happened there, the level of people, it's amazing. It became like this paradise, the heaven of learning inside General Electric, which is a huge transnational corporation, and it has access to a lot of different places. But Crotonville is the place. And in time, it became synonym to good learning. So if you went to a conference and you really liked it, you would say that, well, this is basically Crotonville of conferences or something like that. And they made it a brand, and then they started thinking of how do we bring this, or rather, they did not make it a brand. It became a brand on itself. It was never a brand. It was always G University or G Corporate University, something like that. But then people started using this name, Crotonville, and then the CLO of GE started thinking, like, how can we bring this a Crotonville experience to other parts of our learning? Can we do a Crotonville of web portals? Can we do a Crotonville of apps? Can we do the Crotonville of conferences which don't happen in United States, for example? Can we build a Crotonville in China, for example, right? Where, we need to have the same presence, and we have to build somewhere and so on. But that by that time it was a little bit too late, because they were not in control, right? It's like a car that is rolling away from you downhill. You have to catch up to that. You have to get behind the wheel, and then you have to start steering, or put on the brakes or do something with it. So that was not an optimal situation, but that is an example of how a strong brand emerged. But also maybe because they were not, as you can see from this picture, and if you look for other pictures, you will see how, and this is not normal for America, this is almost not branded at all, right? There is a plaque on the main gate that says, GE Corporate University, but it doesn't say GE on every corner. So
which essentially proves the point that branding is not about name or the colors, it's about the experience.
Right. We'll talk in like 1 second about what branding is about. We have a model for that, as usual, that you can take and use. But in terms of how stories go, this is maybe good bad example or bad good example. That's GE University Crotonville. Read about it. It's excellent. This is another example. I took a picture that is entirely not branded. This is Sberbank University. Sberbank in Russia is the largest bank. It has hundreds of thousands of people employed. It goes far, far beyond banking into IT services and security and whatnot. And they have an excellent corporate university. They've spent enormous amounts of money. They have modeled it after the top universities, corporate universities in the world. GE, including Hamburger University, including also I think Boeing, which has enormous like learning campus, and in general Boeing is a very, very much learning organization. Had a huge impact on that. And unlike those American ones, it's much more available to us. So if you have a chance, you can try and follow them. You can see what they do. And well, maybe not today, but when the travel restrictions are easier, I suggest that you find a conference or a training program that you go there. They do a lot of things with Western business schools. Like INTEA, they work with Harvard, I think, and a lot of programs are in English, so you can use that. but just to go there and see and feel that experience of how it's all built will give you a very, very strong sense of what brands look like. So I've been there many times. I've lectured there. So it's really an experience, right? So, and again, it doesn't have to be plastered with company names all over. So for the second for the second part of our breakfast, I wanted to touch on the exact steps of how you reach at a good, strong, nicely performing brand. We took the BN branding model. It's not their original model, frankly, but I think it's nicely worded. One problem with that is that they don't focus on learning brands or corporate learning brands. So we had to remake it for your benefit. So I guess as soon as we find time to put it all in a circle, we'll have an INTEA branding model for you. For now, this is exclusive. This is not the first time that we presented, but I've run through it in a number of workshops so far. It's been very well welcome. But let's go through the necessary steps for you to understand that you have a brand, or where you lack of that branding. And not just a name for your e-learning portal, right?
Right.
So we begin by the research. Research is the step number one, right? To have a brand, you have to understand who you're building it for. So there are things like your market audience. Is this just your internal employees? Is it is your brand available externally? One of the actually, I think one of the signs that you have a strong learning brand is when it's recognized externally outside of your organization, right? People go to Hamburger University even if they're not employed in McDonald's. You can go to G University even if you're I think even if you're a competitor, you have access to certain programs, because how do you know that the company is a market leader? Well, it's the company that teaches everyone else. Right. So if your bank academy is available to anyone across 3 Baltic states, well, that means you are the bank across 3 Baltic states, or a retailer or telecom company, right?
Yeah.
Consumers, right? So you have to understand the kind of people that you teach are there, and of course that is not one kind. You cannot probably sum them up into a single person. Some companies have a hard time with that. We actually worked, I think, a couple of years ago with Rosatom. That is the atomic company of Russia. And their problem is that anyone who works in the nuclear energy industry works for them.
Which is thousands of people, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I think it's about 400,000 people, something like that. And it's a company / industry. So your consumers are everyone from they reach out into schools to start prepping people for university, who will then start working for them, because to become a nuclear scientist, it takes a little bit of time, a little bit more than a couple of e-learning courses, probably, hopefully. And their competitors are, the Japanese, the French, the Americans. And it's kind of hard to steal, let's say, an employee from Japan to work in Russia, or on the good side, your employees are not likely to just switch to a competitor that easily. But it encompasses so many different people inside it. So you have to understand who your consumers are. Are they old? Have they been working here for 40 years? Are they new? Is this whole industry new? And what they like, how they communicate, where they reside, and so on. Competition, right? So I've touched a little bit on that. So who you are competing with, and I was talking to So there is a Danish company which produces, one of the top producers of certain industrial equipment in the world, and they are launching their academy in Europe. And I was talking to them. We were consulting with them about marketing, and I asked them, well, if you, how are your people, taught and trained today? And they said, well, we don't really know. And said, well, before you do anything on your learning front, you go there and you find out how they solved it. Like you're explaining to me that you're trying to solve a problem which you don't know how it's solved right now. So maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it doesn't have a solution. Maybe it's already solved in such a way that will doesn't make sense to you, but makes a lot of sense to your consumers. If they can't find materials and stuff, where do they go? Do they Google? Do they call competitors? Do you have a guy in the company that everyone emails about things, and so on? So competition, what's competing with your brand? And number one hint is probably your company brand is competing with your learning brand. So you have to think like, how are you going to be different? Yeah, differentiation. Is it's going to be same name plus school, or hamburger university? What can you come up with? SIM card university, right? Yeah. Bees and butterflies. Operations, right? So how everything is working, what are the key stakeholders, how things are happening, so that your brand does not apply just to one process out of multiple, right? Or it does not get sabotaged or tanked in a certain brand. For example, you create a brand and it's all nice and great and so on, but then you find out that you have a lot of strategic initiatives with external vendors of conferences, for example, right? And they already have their brand imposed on your conferences, and they start sabotaging your brand, or they just don't know how to implement it, or they don't have the skills for it.
And there will be a lot of sabotaging, of course, or can be potentially internally. Very often you have a corporate, let's say a company-wide initiative. We are building an e-learning portal. We are building some blended courses. And then it turns out that there's a lot of training happening somewhere locally. And those guys, they see you as competition before you even know that they exist. So, and they will thank you, of course.
But that is the part. That is
and then the culture.
Culture appears. Like, are you all working together or not? What brands work for you? Do you want that brand to be super serious because you're a very serious company? How does it feel? We'll talk about that in exactly 1 minute. But or maybe if you're a very serious company, do you want your learning brand to be more relaxed? Right? Do you want to differentiate like that? Do you want people to have good time outside of their very serious and important work? If you're a medical company, for example, right? Do you joke about this stuff or don't? Right? It depends. Or vice versa, your company might not be perceived as a very serious. Maybe you're doing something that.
Like McDonald's. Who perceive, like, for a consumer, McDonald's is something very kind of no-brainer. Hamburger and fries, but in essence, it's a real estate company with a university that actually at par with some of the Ivy Leagues players, right? So the university has a completely different brand as compared to the retail outlet you see on the street.
Or take Veolia, for example. Veolia has a very strong learning brand and very strong learning university learning function, and Veolia is a company that operates millions of garbage trucks, essentially, right? They do a lot of stuff, but essentially they are what they call the environment management company. Garbage trucks. And again, like maybe your brand has to have a different feeling from their company brand, right? And so on. Right. So the next part is the brand strategy. So this is kind of the juicy part for the brand. This is fun. This is where you can bring in marketing people. This is where you can all brainstorm, because you start with positioning, right? You start by explaining like what are we as a learning brand? Do we let's say, compete with higher education? Do we want to provide the level of education that you can or maybe cannot get in university? Maybe all the MBA that you can get in the Baltics just doesn't really work. So we need to build our own MBA, like Rimi MBA, for example, right?
Why not?
Because we know about it more than any university in the region, something like that. Or do you want to be that helpful, invisible assistant to you, where you find all the information and we make your job easier, right? We save your time. We are this down to earth, no crap kind of technical guys who build the tools for you. You can be anything as a learning. In a way, you already are something, so you have to understand that as well. Then what's the value, right? Do you save time, or do you exchange their time for performance at a very good rate, right?
Yeah.
So do you want do you want your learners to do more in the same time, or do you want your learners to come home earlier?
Yeah, and I would add that one of the very important things in learning is not only to say what you're going to do, what you're going to provide, but also to be clear on what you're not providing. Because in so many companies I work with, employees are a little bit like frustrated with their, let's say, a learning portal or something, because they say, there is nothing there for me, like,
Right.
kind of attitude. So what it signals to me is that probably it was miscommunicated what we are and what we are not, because clearly expectations are somewhere else.
Yeah.
As compared. So it's very important, because that Apple, let's take Apple. Apple says, yeah, we are producing the greatest kind of gadgets in the world. They are not saying we are producing cheap gadgets.
Right.
We are not producing. They do not. They say we have only 3 models of iPhone, but we don't have 50 like Samsung has, for example. They have enormous lineup. Yeah, as compared. So it's different strategies, but they are very clear.
Right. You don't get people who come into an Apple store and walk around and then go back and like, shit, this is all very expensive. It's not for me, like it's stupid, and they feel like they've been cheated and so on. Why? Because no one promised at any point in time, from the way that the store looks, that it's going to have something cheap in it, right?
Yeah.
Likewise, if you're providing something cheap and affordable and easy to digest and quick and so on, you have to look like it, right? Because otherwise, people will probably just do not walk into your cafe, because they will think, well, it looks all fancy and nice, and probably it will take 50 minutes just to have this nice fancy meal, whereas you're a fast food chain. So maybe don't call yourself a restaurant. McDonald's. That still puzzles me.
Yeah, but yeah, you see, it's again positioning. So we say it's restaurant. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Personality. I think this is the most important thing, because every strong brand has certain emotions associated with it.
Right.
So it's like a person, at least in my unprofessional view. We treat brands like a little bit like a personalities, like about something with emotions, descriptions.
It's like he's a fun guy, he's a serious guy, he's a super smart guy. He's
a nerd.
He's a nerd, right? So he's super great and valuable and so on, but you have to keep in mind that this guy doesn't take a joke or something like that. Values, this whole thing's kind of center around this brand and the messaging, right? Because it's also important what you say. Like, Nike, just do it. They don't say Nike, take it easy, right?
Yeah.
They don't say Nike, just be yourself.
Yeah.
No, they're a lot of people actually criticize Nike for being pushy, right? So Nike kind of tries to make you feel bad about who you are, and tries to shame you for not doing enough, right? Why are you, sitting at home? Like, get up, run, do it, and so on. They're pushing. A lot of cosmetics company have moved on to using kind of normal, usual people in their advertising, as opposed to super thoroughbred models who look amazing, male or female.
Thanks to Photoshop.
Also thanks to the fact that they never existed in the first place, right? A lot of sports companies, for example, do the same thing, right? But then again, another sports company will become like your everyday brand. Like Adidas, for example, is targeting kids and street football and stuff like that, and so on. So this message, it is essentially what communicates your values and your personality and so on. So it can be a slogan, but it can be something else as well. And it can be the language that you use.
And this is a thing where we as learning people sometimes allow for our counterparties in the company to be inconsistent with it. Because usually when you do a learning initiative, there is some sponsor there.
Right.
Yeah. So you're doing it for somebody's money or so on. And so these people usually try to bring across their message. Right. We are the technical department. We are serious. We are the salespeople. We are, easygoing and blah, blah, blah. And so the experience in your learning initiatives becomes very inconsistent.
Right.
And getting that consistency is only possible if when you meet with them and they say, okay, we are the technical department, we have to do this technical training on this product and how to use this product, and you tell them, okay guys, this is how we do training. We are always easygoing, to the point, reliable, nice, short, versatile,
something like that.
Yeah, and the slides you bring to me are nothing of it at all.
Yeah.
Sorry, we will remake it. You want it or not, right? Yeah. Because same goes with the Apple Store. Have you seen a product in an Apple Store and they do have external vendors there, like Philips, for example?
Well, lots of them.
They have to adjust for Apple Store. If their packaging will be absolutely inconsistent with the general layout of the Apple Store, you either change the packaging or you go away.
Exactly.
So this is a kind of ask for some, kind of strength there.
Right. It also concerns language both in terms of the tone of communication, that if you have a brand that has a tone associated with it, then it's easier for you to enforce it onto your counterparties. And also like language in terms of national languages, for example, like do we do all training in English, for example, as opposed to local languages, which can, because this is how our brand communicates, as opposed to training, which sort of supposed to be accessible to everyone, across the 15 countries that we operate in and so on. Right. Anyhow, so this is what the personality, actually, you caught up on personality, and I actually have this example of a slide in there. So this is not an exact model, but there are a couple of dimensions that you can look at when you think about your brand. So is our brand academy or something, is it how about sincerity? Are we like down to earth, very if you speak national languages like Latvian, for example, then there is difference of how you say you, right? Or in German it's the same.
Almost
every language except English, right?
And Scandinavian
language. Yeah, where you say, are you very kind of familiar with people or your distance and so on? Do like if you greet your learner on your portal, do you say hi Sergey, or do you say hello Mr. Mr. Negative? Something like that. Stuff like that, excitement, competence, sophistication. Are we sophisticated brand? Are we upper class? Are we expensive? Do we provide programs that require you to commit to 2 hours of learning every day? or do we provide programs that stem for 6 months where you have to commit and then we will kick you out of the program if you don't do your homework, for example? Or are we those easy bite-sized nano learning that's always available to you on your phone and so on? Or are we both? Because an app can be anything. So these are kind of the dimensions along which you can try and think about your brand when you build. But this is just an example. We're not trying to build your brand here right now. So yeah, and then identity. This is the part where it becomes more tangible, right? This is the things.
The logo part.
Yeah, the logo, essentially. You have to come up with a name, right? So for a thing to exist, it has to have a name, right?
Right.
And for you to be more than just, well, we have courses.
Yeah.
You have to have a name, right? The academy, the school, something, the taglines, just do it. The logo, do you just take your corporate logo, or do you want to come up with something on your own? If you have your own logo, you can put it on different things. And once you put your logo, like, do you know where logos come from? It's from people writing their names on stuff so it doesn't get stolen, right? So,
right.
So do you want to put your own logo on certain things so people know that it's yours? There are lots of examples where corporate academies have their own logos, their own colors. It can be like complementary to your main brand color, or it can be the opposite. Like if you're like a blue company, it can be orange or something like that, unless it's like competitors' color or something.
And then your chief marketing officer gets nightmares.
Yeah, after conferences.
Yeah.
But you can walk in T-shirts which say your company university. Do people recognize you as people in?
Oh, these are from the university.
Yeah, these are the academy guys.
The U-Learn guys.
The U-Learn guys, or whatever. Like, because they know that you all have those caps or T-shirts or hoodies or something like that. Or hey, those guys have been at the conference. Why? Because they have those caps which you can't get anywhere. It's not like the normal corporate cap. You have to be to a certain level of confidence to get that stuff. So it's a lot of it. Like it's about packaging, right? So this is the day one desk at Uber, so that when you come to your work, wherever you work, you get a lot of swag, right? There is a flash drive, there is a moleskin, there is the cap, and so on. So does your university have that? Can people actually say that, it like put your brand on everything? Like it's important, and it's a part of a branding process as well. Now, we've talked about three things, which if we go back really quick to this thing. So we talked about the three things which are on the strategic insight side, right? So the research, the strategy, the identity is the things that kind of you sit in your room with everyone and you think about, and then you go out in the world and start doing. So next three things is about actual execution, right?
Just do it.
Just do it, right? So the just do it part consists of essentially three things. One is the brand channels. You have to identify where your brand is visible, how people actually interact with it, right? So number one is probably your learning platform, right? But then you also have a corporate website. For example, on your website, you have the About Us section, you have the Investors section, you have the employment section, or not. Some companies don't, some companies do. When you have an employment section, it shows that, employing and finding new talent is super important for us, right? We're growing, we're hiring all the time. Like, come join us. This is why we created this website, not for the investors, not for the consumers, but for you, the employees and future employees, right? So do we have like a learning part on that website? Like if I go to your company website, do I find anything about learning?
Yeah, you write plus in chat, if we will.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, we have actually a good turnout today. So
yeah,
if I go to your company website, can I find anything about how you train your employees, how you learn?
Not so many pluses coming in.
Yes.
Yeah, and we are not going. Yeah, we are not trying to shame you here, of course, in any way. But this is the change of thinking and perspective that is needed. That because so many learners, so many future employees, so many millennials, as we like to call them, which is a stupid name, of course, when they go and try and they join a company, one of the top priorities is what will they get in this company in terms of development, right? So advertising your learning initiatives for the outside world is actually very important part of the employer branding, as they call it.
It's like, you know, in every job ad that you've posted or you've seen, they say development opportunities.
Yeah, and then you say nothing about what kind of those are, right?
Yeah.
So this is a good idea.
And ideally, they should know already. Like, they go to work for GE and they know that they will be trained at the highest level possible. People go to companies like PwC, for example, because they know that 5 years from now, they will be, 10 times more valuable to any other company just because PwC will train them.
Yeah, because being
Procter and Gamble is another example where people go work for 3 years and then leave for double or triple wage to another company because they know so much.
Yeah, McDonald's is proud of being, how many, 15% of Americans have worked in McDonald's at some point of their life, something like that. It's kind of a big number, and they're proud of it. They're not afraid to lose those people, right? So, but that's part of identity.
Yeah. Social networks, right? So
same thing.
Yeah, your company has like a Facebook page, a Twitter account. How much information can we find about your learning initiative? How, hey, this is the team building that we've done. This is the conference that we've done. This is actually, like, what about your learning department actually having their own Twitter or a channel on your corporate teams where you can actually see the behind the scenes, right? Go to INTEA Instagram right now and look at our Instagram. This is kind of our employer branding part. And this is where you can see how we operate on a daily basis. Can we see how because you do a lot of stuff. You care about your learning. You do a lot of interesting things. You go to different departments. I have friends who work in Sheremetyevo Airport in Moscow in their training department. They've been to a few of my workshops. And they actually came up with an idea of, they have those high visibility vests that they have to walk around, and every department in the company have their vests branded with like a 3-letter acronym, so that you from far away you can see what kind of people are working. Are they the ground handling personnel, the technical personnel, or someone else? And the learning guys, they always had just the other vests, like whatever is by the door, so they came up with an idea of having their own vest, so that when they walk around the airport, and they do that a lot because they go to a lot of different places and they do training, they are actually visible, and they're, hey, those are the training guys, right? So can we do something like, at least on the internet inside your teams? Then point of sale is where your employees physically interact with your learning. Anything, I'll show you a quick picture, right? And also networking and corporate events, right? So if are your conferences branded? Are your learning initiatives branded? When I get the notepad and the pen at your training conference inside the company, is it the corporate or is it the learning, the academy pad? And it makes a difference. Like, brand is a lot about is about little things. Apps, like, do you have an app? GE have an app. Is it useful? We don't know, but we have an app. It sounds serious. So our company has an app for the consumers. Why don't we have an app for the learners? Why not our own, under our own brand, not just a Moodle brand, for example.
Yeah.
This is an example of a POS, point of sale. It's actually a toilet, as you can see, and it's just advertising for a certain initiative that the company is trying to push through. Because why? Because this is where people's brains are relaxed and they are ready to spend some attention. If you can go into toilets, you can go into kitchens, you can brand water coolers. You can go into wardrobes, you can go into elevators, you can think like, hey, if I was running a bar on the top floor of our corporate building, where would I go to let people know that I'm running that bar, right?
Yeah, and
go physical.
Yeah, go physical, and even if imagine a situation: you have a newbie, somebody you're being has to be onboarded, and they go into, probably it's the second time they go into your corporate building, and you of course have the name of your company there. Why don't you have a name of your university there?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm going for onboarding there. I'm just starting and say, okay, this is the bank and this is the bank's university. Ah, okay, it's second floor. It's on the door. So it's already kind of the first second person enters in the company, he sees that there is a brand.
Impressions, first impressions. All right, so the fifth part of execution is actually planning what you're going to do. Everything that you've done so far, you have to prioritize, then you have to budget. Zero budget is also a budget, I remind you. You put everything on a timeline, of course, it's a normal stuff. But, one thing that I wanted to kind of focus on is the media plan or the content plan. Often we we presume that social stuff, just appears. We as non-professional social marketing people, for example, we think, okay, well, today I had a bad day, I'm going to go to Facebook and write about it. Or today I saw a funny car in the street, I'm going to take a picture and post to my Instagram story or something like that. In fact, those things are not chaotic. They don't come out of some genius moments or random moments. You have to have a content plan. If you're going to do a blog, you have to
have a
schedule. You have to decide, okay, we're going to do 25 blogs per year, every 2 weeks, or breakfasts. We're going to do 25 breakfasts. We're going to, we have a topic for every breakfast. We know when it's going to happen and so on. It's easy when you do the first 3 or 4, and then you run out of ideas and you're like, okay, what do I do? And then the next breakfast is like in 3 days. And it's very difficult to market it. It's very difficult to jump from one breakfast to another in terms of, stringing them up and so on. So same thing for your social media, for your blogs, for your email campaigns to employees. Emailing is probably a huge part of a huge channel to your employees. But then do you have to sit down and come up with every message? And, it will be shorter or longer depending on how much time you have at that particular day. Or do you want to write them up professionally, ahead of time for the next 3 months and then, create this campaign and so on. So plan. And the final step is execution. It's a huge topic of how you actually do that. We don't want to focus on this today. What we wanted to do today, just to remind you, is that the brand is the vehicle for you to get power inside your organization, to accumulate value of your learning, to transform learning expenditure into learning investment, actually. It's a tool for communicating, just like anything else, but it's kind of one tool to rule them all. So we hope that this was useful. If you have any comments, if you want to share something, if you want to come talk about how you do that in your own company, if you need any help, we're always happy to talk and share more inspiration with you. Thank you for joining. Our next breakfast is hopefully in 2 weeks. If you have a specific idea for that, let us know as well. We are always happy to plan something specifically, along the lines that you propose. And we'll see you next time. Join us on YouTube. We'll send the recording of this breakfast to everyone who participated. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. Like us, give us a call. See you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.